Okay, so this is Unit 13, Redox and Electrochemistry. So what is that? Well, electrochemistry is the chemistry of electricity, which involves electrons. Okay, so we're going to learn about electricity. And basically, as far as why does redox matter? Because this is how batteries work, right? Do we need batteries? We use batteries every day. What's our favorite thing in the world that has a battery in it? Our phones, right? What would I do without my phone during this quarantine? So redox chemistry is going to explain to us how batteries work. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of that, and then we'll spend the whole unit kind of breaking down the nitty-gritty details. So first of all, what does redox stand for? It's read is for reduction, and ox is for oxidation. So we kind of abbreviate. There's these reactions where one thing goes through reduction and the other thing goes through oxidation. So when that happens, you can call it an oxidation reduction reaction, but that's kind of long. So instead of saying oxidation and reduction, we just say redox, reduction and oxidation, because it sounds better than oxred. So this explains how batteries work. So let me just give you a quick idea. So we're going to have two pieces of metal. I didn't mean to circle this. Let's say one of them is zinc and the other one is copper. Okay. And what happens is when metals are close, one of them is kind of stronger than the other, and one is going to take the other one's electrons. So I think zinc is stronger. So zinc is going to take electrons from copper. So that's electrons going from copper to zinc. There's a name for when something loses electrons, and it's called oxidation. There's a name for when something gains electrons, and we'll talk about like why it's called that and how you can remember it, but it's called reduction. So this whole process where one thing loses electrons and the other one gains them is one thing gets oxidized, one thing gets reduced, so we call it a redox reaction. Okay, well, why does that matter? Well, this actually explains how a battery works. So let me redraw this picture. Okay, so if electrons are flowing from one thing to another, what is the flow of electrons? Well, that's electricity. Flowing electrons is electricity. So I want to make this useful to me. So how can I make this useful? Well, if the metals are right close together, that's not really use to me if the electrons are just flowing from this metal to this metal directly. But if I separate the two metals and connect them with a wire, now the electrons are forced to flow through the wire, and I now have a wire with electricity flowing through it, and I could use that wire to do things. So let me redraw my picture like that. I'll pause it. So if I redraw my picture and have the zinc here and the copper all the way over here, so this is what a battery looks like. Okay, if this were my battery, I would take two metals that I know pass electrons, and I'd say, I'm not going to let you two pass your electrons close. I'm going to separate you and only connect you with a wire. All right. And now the electrons that flow from copper to zinc are going to flow through the wire. And now I have this wire with electricity flowing through it. That's awesome. Now I can harness it. So what am I going to do? I'm going to connect that wire. I'm right in the middle of the wire. I'll put some sort of device, like maybe a light bulb. Right, so this is how like a battery operated light bulb would work. Or maybe I'll put, I don't know, some other device there. Another thing we sometimes put, and we would have done in class, is like this little voltmeter. And it's like this little thing with like a dial that shows like how many volts of electricity I'm getting. All right, so the basics here are, we're going to learn the chemistry of electricity in a battery by looking at how one thing gives electrons to another, and we can kind of harness that to drive electrical devices. And the process that does this is one thing getting reduced and one thing getting oxidized. So we're going to call these reactions redox reactions. Okay, so redox reactions, oxidation and reduction reactions explain how electrons flow to make batteries work.